Hi, in this video I'm going to teach you how to set up your quick mask mode and how to adjust an image using levels in order to create more contrast. First thing is that when you go into Photoshop, you're going to have to set up your quick mask mode, and that is under your foreground and background colors. So there's a little rectangle with a circle in it. You double click on that and you're going to change it from masked areas to selected areas. And the color you're going to change to a bright green. Okay. By default, it's red. And usually, you're not going to see a lot of this bright green in your actual photograph. So it's a good color to start off with. Okay, so now I know that we're set up. So I'm going to double click on it again and it says selected areas. The bright green is there. Opacity is 50%. So that's good. All right, so we're not going to use that just yet, but we will be later on. First thing is that you have to duplicate your background. So Command J to duplicate your background. Didn't work. Command J. There we go. Okay, so we're going to try to create a little bit more contrast using levels. And I'm going to click on the adjustment layer at the bottom. And now I choose levels, and I'm going to see the histogram. And the histogram looks pretty good. There is a good distribution from the blacks right up to the whites. If I would like, I can bring this slider in just so that it meets the end of the histogram, which is where the whites end. Okay. From there, I can adjust the exposure by bringing the slider to the left or to the right. Okay, and that will be a matter of preference on what you would like to have for your photograph. I'm going to leave it at about 95.95. Okay, so that levels adjustment, if you look right here, here is your layer mask, and it's white, and white means reveal, black means conceal. If I want to get rid of that levels adjustment on part of it, I'm going to paint over it with black. Okay, I'm not going to do that just yet, but anyway, I'm going to go back to my layer 1 now, and I'm going to try to do another levels adjustment on everything except the sky. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to go into my quick mask mode, and I've already set it up, so that's fine. So now in order to go into it, I click on Q, and now I can see that it's highlighted, Q, and then I'm going to click on B for brush. I make sure that the flow and the opacity is at 100%. I'm going to make my brush bigger, and now I'm going to paint over that entire, oh, sorry. I need to make sure that I'm in black. So there we go. So the color of the foreground has to be black when you're doing this. Otherwise, it's going to show up very, very faint. And now I can make my brush smaller in order to select the houses. In order to change the size of your brush, you use the square brackets. Okay, now I can make my brush bigger again, make sure that I have everything selected. And I do. You have to make sure again that the color of the foreground is black when you do this, not green. You're not actually painting over your entire photograph with green. Okay, now I'm going to click on Q. It's okay if this is rough. However, if we want to change that a little bit and refine the edges, just click on Q again. And now I'm going to change the color to white. So I could quickly click on the X to go between black and white. I'm going to make my brush smaller, and I'm just going to clean up that edge so it's not selected. And even above the houses. Okay. But that could be done later on, no problem. I'm going to go back. I'm going to click Q, and now I have my marching ants going around the photograph. Now I'm going to do another levels adjustment to make this part stand out a little bit more. Click on levels, and my blacks are okay. I'm going to bring in the whites again, just a little bit. And again, it just lets that stand out a bit more. Now, basically, you start with a bigger area. So I started with the whole photograph, which is indicated right here. And then in the white part, you can see that I did the levels adjustment on everything except the sky. So now I'm going to pick something else. I'm going to pick the boat here. I want that to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to go into my quick mask mode again. So Q and then B. And now I'm going to select the boat. Okay, now I'm going to click on Q. It's okay if it's just rough right now. We can fix it later. I'm going to click on my new adjustment layer, go up to levels, and I'm going to bring in the whites again. Now, not too much. I don't want it really standing out from the rest of the photograph. If I'd like to bring down the exposure, I can do so as well. Okay. All right, let's try and look at the sky a little bit. So I'm going to go Q and B, and now I'm going to select the sky. I'm going to try to avoid the houses here. Make this a bit smaller. Okay, I'm going to click on Q. I have my marching ants. And now it's going to give me a histogram of just that area. I'm going to click on my levels. And you can see that I don't have a lot of darks here. I'm going to bring in the whites a little bit. And now I'm going to bring in that slider here, and it's going to bring out a little bit more contrast in the sky. I don't want to make it too crazy like that. Then it doesn't look really realistic. But I want to get a little bit more definition in the color of the sky. So I'm going to bring it to the beginning of the blacks, where the blacks start in my sky, as indicated in the histogram. Now, after that, again, I can change my exposure. Now that I've set up the beginning point and the end point of my histogram, and I can change my exposure. So I'm going to bring it down a little tiny bit. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is just select part of the water. Okay. And I'm going to avoid the land here. So I'm going to go back to my most recent layer. I'm going to go Q and B for brush. Now I'm going to select the water. Again, this is going to be a rough selection, and that's okay as long as you're not making really radical changes. If you are, then you're going to have to go in and do some careful masking afterwards. And I always say that work with a bigger brush unless you're getting close to other objects, and then you can make it a bit smaller. So right here, I'm going to work with a bigger brush because otherwise I'm going to miss things. And back here, I'm just going to include the boats. It's fine. It won't affect it too much. All right. And I think I'm going to include this part right here. Everything except the rocks. All right, now I'm going to go back to Q. I'm going to go down to my adjustment layers. I'm going to choose levels. And I'm going to bring in the whites a little bit more. Okay, now I can make it a bit darker, but that does not look good. If I did make it darker, then you can see that there's a real difference right here and as well around my edges. So you have to be very careful doing that. I'm just going to make a very subtle adjustment where you're not even going to tell around the edges that that has been done. Okay, now if I want to look at the before and after, I'm going to click on Option Shift on the keyboard, and then I'm going to click on the eye. So that's before and that's after. Before, after. Okay. There are many other things that we can do. I'm going to go and do one more levels adjustment around here. So Q and B. Okay. And I'm going to go here, levels, bring it in a little bit, and that's good.